Sunday is the first day of fall, but in Washington, critics say it feels more like Groundhog Day. The House votes today on a bill that keeps the government going, but also cuts off funding for President Obama's health care law. That vote sets the stage for another potential government shutdown. With us now is Chief Washington correspondent and host of Face the Nation, Bob Schieffer. Bob, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Charlie.
The Wall Street Journal, as you know, had an editorial in which it called the Republican plan a kamikaze mission. Could this be destructive to the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, when you have the Wall Street Journal using terms like that, when Karl Rove, the leading Republican thinker, the guy who managed George Bush's campaigns, when you got Republicans in the Senate saying the same kinds of things, it's got to tell you that Republicans may be heading in a direction that they don't want to be heading right now. But having said that, I think this is all going to take place. I mean, they're going to pass this in the House, I would assume, and it's going to go nowhere in the Senate. When the Wall Street Journal compares them to, you know, those Japanese suicide pilots in World War II, I wonder if it isn't, I think that's apt, but even more apt to, you remember way on into the 1950s when they'd go into the jungles of the Philippines and they'd find these Japanese soldiers that thought World War II was still going on? I mean, you know, I mean, the war over Obamacare is over, you know, and they still continue to fighting. This is not going to change here.
Well, you heard Senator Cruz say yesterday that he's going to do everything he can to defund Obamacare, including a filibuster. How do you see it playing out, Bob?
Well, I mean, you know, yesterday, John McCain, who happens to be a Republican, some Republicans don't think he is, but he says he is, he points out that it takes 67 votes to override a presidential veto. If both houses somehow or another pass this thing, the president would most surely veto it, and there are not, as John McCain pointed out yesterday, 67 votes to override that. So this is going to go on, and while we keep having this movie, and by the way, have you seen this movie before? I think I have.
Yes, we know
about
the dialogue.
20 times now. Yes. You know, while all this keeps going on, the country is going broke. We're in the midst of, I don't know what we're in the midst of with this Syria thing. We've had 11 people killed, or 13 people, I guess it was, a couple of miles from the White House. There are some serious problems facing this country, and again, they are not being addressed. And, you know, Congress overall has a very low approval rating, but I think on this one, the Democrats can stand back and say, you know, we're not part of this, boys. This is those other guys. I think in the long run, this is going to hurt the Republicans.
And Karl Rove indicated that yesterday, as you mentioned, Bob, that it's independents, the independents who lean towards the Republican Party that are most opposed to this, and that's where it may hurt the party.
Well, there's also, Bob, there's also the fact that it was part of what the chairman of the Fed said when he talked about the economic recovery. It was contributing to the lack of an economic recovery. And it's also, as we know, how central bankers around the world look at the United States and its economy, that if it can't set things straight in Washington, it's not good for the economy.
It is not, and it is not good for how the rest of the world views the United States. This is not how superpowers operate. And, you know, like a guy who's just got a book out, and he always finds a way to work the book into the conversation. I talked to Henry Kissinger about this yesterday and got his views on that. And Dr. Kissinger is going to be with us Sunday on Face the Nation. He was first on Face the Nation, Charlie, back in 1957. Oh, wow. And he's been on many times since, and he still has something to say. It was really a lot of fun to interview him, and so I've managed to turn all of this to what's coming up on Face the Nation. So
well done, Bob Schieffer.
And to remind us all, that you can live to be 90 and keep going strong.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Bob.
It's so much fun to sit at the table with somebody older than me. Let me also say that's the reason I really asked him.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. As Bob said on Face the Nation this Sunday, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, plus Senators Tom Coburn and Joe Manchin. You can see Face the Nation Sunday morning here on CBS.